There are behaviors you keep repeating, like pulling away from others, avoiding intimacy, or needing to stay in control all the time. Maybe you've thought, something's wrong with me. Maybe I'm just weird. But the truth is, these could be the echoes of an old wound. That wound may not bleed anymore, but it quietly shapes how you connect, how you love, and how you live every single day. In this video, we'll explore 7 behaviors often seen in people who've experienced trauma, not to assign blame, but to understand ourselves better and to begin healing gently from within. If you've ever felt lost inside your own emotions, I hope this video becomes a soft anchor, reminding you, you are not broken, and you are never alone. Part 1: Overreacting to what others call small things. Why are you so sensitive? It's not a big deal, just let it go. Try thinking more positively. If you've heard these words, you might have reacted too much to something others thought was nothing. A careless comment, a cold stare, a message left on read. But the truth is, you're not weak. Your brain is responding exactly as it learned to keep you safe. Brain when trauma keeps you in survival mode. Whether it stems from childhood or past relationships, trauma sharpens your nervous system's sensitivity to threat. Not the running from lions kind of danger, but things like, are they mad at me? Did I say something wrong? Maybe they don't like me anymore. These questions pop up automatically because your brain remembers social pain just as strongly as physical pain. High voltage small events, big emotions. You're not reacting to what happened. You're reacting to what your brain believes it means. A message left unread, I'm being abandoned. A simple head shake, I'm not good enough. A mild complaint, I'm a burden. These aren't new emotions. They're echoes of past wounds, reawakened in the present. Puzzle piece why others don't understand, and why that hurts more. Someone who hasn't experienced trauma won't get why a harmless comment could keep you up all night. They haven't lived with every mistake being magnified, every feeling being invalidated, every hurt being dismissed as too much. And the hardest part isn't even your emotions. It's that no one ever acknowledged they were valid in the first place. Woman in Lotus Position Closing Part 1, Opening Part 2. If you've ever felt like you overreacted, overthought, or blamed yourself for every tiny mistake, you're not being dramatic. You're surviving, the way your brain once learned to protect you. But surviving isn't the only way to live. You deserve to learn how to trust again, how to feel safe, and how to see your emotions not as burdens, but as human. Part 2: Avoiding conflict at all costs, even if it means losing yourself. I'd rather stay quiet than cause drama. If I speak up, it'll just make everything worse. I don't want to upset anyone, so I'll keep it in. On the surface, it may look like calmness or patience. But often, it's not peace. It's fear. Brain when conflict feels like a threat to your safety. For someone who's experienced trauma, conflict equals danger. Not just disagreement, but the risk of being yelled at, rejected, hurt. So they learn to stay silent even when treated unfairly. Shrink themselves even when they're hurting. Apologize even when they did nothing wrong. Not because they're weak, but because they lived in environments where speaking up always led to punishment. Women standing, those who avoid conflict are often those who've had to swallow their pain. Since childhood, they were taught their feelings don't matter. Anger and disappointment were punished. Peace only came when they disappeared. So they grew up learning to please others to avoid being hurt. Broken heart, the price of peace, losing yourself. When you keep trying to keep everyone else happy, You eventually forget what you truly want. Feel unable to say no, even when you're exhausted. Get anxious when someone seems upset, even if it has nothing to do with you. You avoid conflict, but in doing so, you lose something far more important: yourself. You can learn to choose yourself without hurting others. Avoiding conflict was once a survival strategy, but it may no longer be necessary. You can learn to set boundaries without feeling guilty. Express your emotions without fear of being hated. Choose honesty over false harmony. Not to start fights, but to live authentically. Brain Closing Part 2, Opening Part 3. Trauma teaches you that peace only exists when you stay quiet. But real peace is when you can be yourself without fear. And that kind of peace you don't need permission for. It starts the moment you dare to say, "My voice matters, even if it's different from yours." Part 3, Always on emotional alert, seeing threats everywhere. Have you ever felt your heart race just because someone frowned? Or replayed an offhand comment in your mind all night, imagining the worst? If so, it's not because you're too sensitive. It's because your brain is doing exactly what it was trained to do: stay alert. A brain raised in chaos learns to scan for threats if someone grows up in an unsafe environment, where emotions are dismissed, where a calm voice can turn into yelling in a heartbeat. Their brain develops a hypersensitive radar, constantly scanning tone, facial expressions, subtle shifts in behavior. Constantly wondering, are they mad? Did I mess up? Always preparing for the worst-case scenario. This was a survival strategy. It once protected you from outbursts, shame, maybe even harm. But now, when you're no longer in that environment, it keeps you from relaxing, trusting, and connecting. Magnifying glass tilted left. What is emotional hypervigilance? It's a state where your mind is always scanning for signs of rejection, judgment, or harm. Overanalyzing every text, emoji, or scene but not replied. Interpreting everything negatively to prepare yourself. You're not living in the present. You're living in a threat map drawn by your brain to keep you safe. The cost? It's exhausting. Broken heart. The cost of constant vigilance, incomplete connection. You can't believe someone genuinely cares about you. You overthink every silence, every message. You build walls before anyone has a chance to hurt you. The result? You're lonely, even in relationships you deeply want. You're there, but you don't step out of your protective shell. Seedling. You can learn to feel, without always being on guard. It's not easy, but it's possible. Healing doesn't mean turning off the radar. It means learning to tell the difference between real danger and old fear. It's when you pause and ask, are they really mad or just tired? It's when you stop before reacting from old instincts. It's when you begin to believe, not everyone will hurt you. Part 4, Blaming yourself for your reactions, when even you don't understand why. Sometimes you snap over something small, then regret it all day. Sometimes you pull away from someone, not because they did something wrong, but because you're scared you will. And then, the familiar questions return. Why am I like this? Am I too emotional, too much, broken somehow? Performing arts. Trauma causes reactions even you can't explain. For someone who's experienced trauma, especially in childhood, you don't just carry wounds. You carry survival responses. A slightly harsh tone might trigger your fight or flight mode. A tiny conflict can make you shut down or explode. Because your body remembers fear, even when your mind doesn't. You may lash out to hide vulnerability. You may withdraw from someone you love, because love once hurt you. And none of this is your fault. These are learned survival strategies, your brain's way of keeping you safe. Repeat button the cycle, react, hurt others or yourself, shame, isolation. You may find yourself in this loop. Saying things in the heat of emotion and losing sleep over the guilt. Disappearing from a relationship once it starts to feel safe, fearing abandonment before it happens. Thinking I'm too much or no one could love me, and retreating even more. The more you blame yourself, the more unworthy you feel of love. Brain, the problem isn't who you are, but what you've been through. Your behavior may seem confusing, but the root is often clear. You learned that survival meant reacting fast, big, or not at all. Once you understand that, you can begin the most important step. Stop blaming and start getting curious. Light bulb curiosity over judgment, the start of healing. Why did I react that way? Where did this come from? Why do I always mess things up? What am I trying to protect? I'm awful. Maybe I was deeply hurt, and I'm trying not to be again. Shift from blaming to observing. From self-loathing to self-understanding. It's the first step to breaking the cycle. Part 5. Avoiding good things because you think you don't deserve them. Have you ever stepped back from something good? Someone cares for you, but you doubt it. A chance opens up, but you hesitate. A kind, genuine person comes close, and you shut the door. And no one gets it. Only you know, deep inside, there's a small voice whispering, "This isn't meant for me." Magnifying glass tilted left, the reverse defense mechanism of the hurt. It sounds strange, but for those who've experienced trauma, especially rejection, abandonment, or abuse, good things can feel threatening. A healthy relationship confuses you because you've equated love with pain. Compliments feel uncomfortable because you were taught you're not good enough. Kindness makes you suspicious because you fear they'll change, just like the others. So instead of moving toward it, you pull away. Not because you don't want it, but because losing it feels scarier than having it. Brain, the root belief, I don't deserve good things. Trauma doesn't just leave pain. It leaves false beliefs about your worth. If you were abandoned, you believe, I'm not enough to stay for. If you were controlled, you believe, freedom is dangerous. If trust once led to pain, you believe, trusting is emotional suicide. Over time, you start identifying with those wounds. So even when happiness knocks, you don't open the door, thinking, it must be a mistake. Broken heart, the cost of rejecting what's good. You become someone who always keeps their distance. You shrink in the face of opportunity. You turn away love, not because you don't crave it, but because you don't believe you're worthy of it. And the saddest part? You become someone you no longer recognize. Seedling, but what if you paused and asked yourself this, is it really that I'm unworthy, or has no one ever taught me how to receive good things? That question could be your beginning. Not to become better, but to believe you were always enough. Not because you did anything extraordinary, but because you're breathing, you're trying, you're here. And that is enough to deserve good things. Part 6. Always on high alert in relationships. Everything seems fine. They're being kind. You should feel safe. But instead, you feel uneasy. Not because something bad is happening, but because you're waiting for it. Brain, when your brain learns to expect pain. After trauma, especially betrayal, abandonment, or being hurt by those closest to you, your brain stops believing in lasting safety. It learns one lesson. If everything's calm now, something bad must be coming. So you develop a hypersensitive radar, constantly picking up signs of change, possible threats, or anything that could lead to the same old pain. Magnifying glass tilted left common signs. You analyze every look, every silence, every tiny change in someone's tone. You keep scanning the relationship, asking, are they pulling away? Did I do something wrong? You find it hard to relax even when things are good, because deep down, you believe peace is fake. And the worst part? You blame yourself for feeling this way. Cyclone hypervigilance isn't a personality trait, it's a survival mechanism. You're not too sensitive. You're not overreacting. You're someone who once had to stay alert to stay safe. Maybe you grew up guessing adults' moods to avoid conflict. Maybe you were in a relationship where you never knew when love would turn cold or angry. Maybe you had to always be on guard just to keep the peace. Your brain got programmed like this: vigilance equals survival. Broken heart, the cost of being constantly alert? You struggle to fully trust, so true connection feels out of reach. You feel drained even in relationships you want to keep. You push people away, not because you don't want them close, but because you're scared to let them in. Your vigilance once protected you, but now, it's making you feel lonely in the very place you should feel safest, your relationships. Seedling, how do you start healing? By recognizing your fear makes sense. You're not broken. You're just someone who's been deeply hurt. And now, your brain is simply trying to protect you. So instead of blaming yourself for being too guarded, try telling yourself, I have a reason to be cautious. But today, I'm somewhere safer. And I can learn to relax, little by little. Part 7, pushing people away even when you deeply need them. You're feeling overwhelmed, exhausted, like you're about to fall apart. And someone says, if you need anything, I'm here. But you shake your head. I'm fine. Really? Fine? Not really. You just don't know how to let someone in when deep down, there's an old fear. If I let them close, they'll hurt me. Brain push and pull dynamics, the tug-of-war of trauma. People with emotional trauma often hold two conflicting instincts. One side craves connection, to be seen, held, understood. The other side fears being hurt again, losing control, being abandoned. So you draw people in with your eyes. Then push them away with your words. I need you, but I'm scared you'll see the real me, then leave. I'm lonely, but I'm scared intimacy will only lead to disappointment. Counterclockwise arrows button. What this often looks like. You isolate yourself even when what you need most is a hug or a conversation. When people care, you respond by pulling back, acting cold, or stubbornly refusing help. You feel uncomfortable when someone is too kind because you don't trust it'll last. And when they actually walk away, you feel heartbroken. But instead of reaching out, you tell yourself, see? I was right. Getting close never works. Puzzle piece. Why do you do this even with the people you love? Because to you, intimacy equals risk. Because you've opened up before, and it ended in pain. Because you once trusted fully, and were deeply disappointed. So to survive, you developed a reflex. It's safer to handle things on my own. Needing people is dangerous. Light bulb, but this reflex doesn't heal you, it just keeps you lonely. You're not wrong for wanting to protect yourself. You're strong, but that strength shouldn't become a wall. What you truly need is a safe space. A place where you can be vulnerable and still be loved. And to have that, you need to let someone in. Bit by bit. Not everyone will hurt you like the ones before. Seedling a healing reminder: pushing people away won't stop the pain, it only makes you lonelier. If you notice yourself pushing someone away, pause. Take a breath. And ask yourself, what am I afraid of right now? Is this person really like the ones who hurt me? Can I try trusting just 5% for now? You don't have to open up 100% overnight. Even a tiny crack is the beginning of connection. All those things you've done, avoiding, withdrawing, staying in control, being hyper-aware, pushing people away, they don't mean you're too much or damaged. They mean you fought hard to survive. But now, you don't have to fight alone anymore. You can learn how to connect again. Slowly, gently, with yourself first, then with the world. Trauma doesn't just live in memory. It lives in reflexes, in patterns that once kept you safe, but now keep you stuck. So if you saw yourself in anything we've talked about, know this: you're not weak. You're someone who's been incredibly strong for a very long time. Healing doesn't happen overnight. But you've already started, just by noticing, listening, and understanding yourself a little more. If this video spoke to you, like it, share it, or leave a comment. Because sometimes, one person speaking out is enough to reach thousands of others who feel exactly the same way, but silently.